With that, we're going to go through some of the background of what happened as we moved into the State Pathways to Prosperity Initiative. And when we did that, we know that as state leaders, we have to develop innovative ways to educate and prepare our students for the demands of the workforce. And many states are seeing evidence of economic growth, and with that, an increase in job creation and overall decrease in unemployment. But we still have too many that are unemployed. We have the skills gap, and we have technical skills that are needed. And the list goes on of the challenges that we have. So what we had in the, what we've had is a State Pathways to Prosperity initiative. There are some people here in the room that were part of that task force. As I look around, I know Representative Dewberry and I were both part of that, and Representative Thompson, who else do we have in the room that was part of that? And you didn't introduce yourself either, did you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, we thank those that were part of that initiative and that work group that we had. So when we looked at it, it started with CSG President Governor Earl Ray Tomblin of West Virginia and the chairman, Senate Majority Leader Mark Norris from Tennessee. And they had some vision to find ways to grow state economies and to address those workforce challenges. In addition, they wanted to make sure that we could fill those needs for skilled workforce and for those people to be gainfully employed. And then in addition to that, through this initiative, they wanted us to have a framework for the states so that we, as state policymakers, we have something that we can look at and strategies and address those needs and make recommendations, and also for you to have resources of places throughout the United States that have already tried some things of those recommendations that we can actually look at and explore if they seem to fit the needs of our state. So when we looked at the big picture, we're very familiar with it. The greatest impediment to business expansion is that trained workforce that we so oftentimes, we know that there's the need out there. How are they going to expand? Or even some businesses that do expand are not able to sustain that because they don't have that skilled workforce. And just for one statistic that will be thrown in here, by 2025, at least 65% of our jobs will require training beyond high school. Not necessarily that they have to have a 4-year degree, even a 2-year degree, but some type of credential, certificate, something that's going to have the recognition that they have the skills for a job that is out there for them. But only 40% of our workers, this is nationwide, have that today. So as we looked at that, the initiative brought in some other areas that sometimes we don't really think of so much. One of them, we looked at child poverty, the impact that has. We looked at criminal justice issues, people that are getting out of prison, and then how do they get into the workforce, and the skills that are needed, and that adjustment back into society, and also the challenges that we have when you have that, so to speak, record against you, real challenges. Also looking at the impact of hunger and nutrition on society. We have a lot of that, and we talked about ways that we could address those challenges. And then also looking at military and veterans concerns. We have a lot of people that have served, and once they get out of that serving of our country, they find that there's some major obstacles sometimes. So those were some areas that we talked about. Whoops, I think I went too fast. So the challenge. We have fewer basic skills that are needed in our jobs. As I look around the room, we have a wide variety of ages, and those of you that can identify with me and my age, you know that oftentimes you didn't even have to go to high school, and you were able to have jobs that were that you could have a family, and that it was enough for you to live on. That is gone. We've lost that need of as many basic skill jobs, and now we have that middle skills job. You need more than a high school degree, but you don't always have to have a four-year degree for those middle skills jobs. But we do need the trade, those jobs where you are specifically working in a specific skill area. So then we looked at also, and we hear a lot about this increased need for soft skills or workplace competencies. As I talk to people in the business world and in industry, I think this is a major challenge that they're having, those communication skills, looking at problem-solving skills, working as a team, and then those skills of things that we take for granted, showing up on time, being there, working the full day, some of those things that we don't even think about that are great obstacles right now that we're facing. So, more challenges. We have to look at the role of post-secondary education. We have different forms of skills that are needed. It isn't the same as what it was years ago, and that is changing very rapidly. And as we face those strategies, we have to look at public-private partnerships, not only with the public, but we also have to look at different levels of government. Oftentimes we have silos around our different agencies and departments that we have to find ways that we can work with them, educational institutions, and looking at our employers, unions, lots of challenges that we have. And then to expand that access for everyone so that everyone that needs and is ready for post-secondary education, that all of them are able to access that. Let's see. So, State Pathways to Prosperity was created, and I'm going to have Representative DeBerry is going to go over some of the things with that, and then we'll have a couple speakers, panelists that will be talking.
The fact of the matter is, we had a lot that we needed to discuss, and this task force, I think, attacked it with the skill, aptitude, and all-around fitness that was needed for such a challenge that was placed before us for a year. As you know, we discussed these issues and broke them down and apart and did everything that we could, from considering the considerable wisdom and experience that was on this task force, to come up with a pathway. When I was looking at this floor a moment ago, it reminded me of something that I saw once from an airplane when I was looking at the Mississippi River, and that it was a meandering stream. And it's a meandering stream because water always takes the path of least resistance. And we understood that, considering these issues, that we had to make some tough decisions because these are tough issues. We folks of our age, we know that when we were growing up, at least my age, that we taught our children to think and to talk and to communicate. We went to the moon with a slide rule, a piece of paper, and Jim Lovell did computations there in that capsule with a piece of paper and a pencil that a lot of kids can't even do on the computer now. So we have to think about what's the pathway to get to where we want to go and where we need to go, because it's really a matter of national defense. If our nation is going to continue to prosper, then we have to tackle these tough issues, and we have to look at them with a open mind and get outside of the box. So the Pathways to Prosperity broke into 4 different portions here and committees: children and youth, veterans concerns, hunger and nutrition, criminal justice issues, all of which have to be looked at and considered if we're going to find a pathway to where we're actually going to just stop getting ready to get ready to do something and actually make some decisions that are going to get us where we want to go. Our committees discussed these issues, broke them down, looked at the problems, and found solutions. K-12 post-secondary education, looking at that issue, preparing educators, looked at that issues, access to educational training, looking at the data and making the data make sense. We have piles and piles and piles of data from years and years of study, and oftentimes we don't connect the dots to where we can come up with something that really works in helping children, and we lose one generation after another. If we talk 4 years about something, that's 4 years in a kid's life and education that kid's lost. And so we have to we approach this in a different fashion, which is what I like what we did. One of the policy recommendations, provide opportunities for alignment of stackable credentials, flexibility, and licensure. In other words, look at the educators and do everything possible to get the right people in the classroom, the right people before the children, folks who will not only have the skills, but have empathy and look at the children as our greatest asset. The Subcommittee on Children and Youth talks and considered the fact that the families make up the building blocks of our nation. When our families fall apart, when our children are not raised, when there's dysfunctionality among the very folks who pay the taxes, do the jobs, and hold the country together, send kids to the military, then we're not going to have a country that's going to be very strong. So we have to talk about quality education, workforce readiness for all students. And I don't know how we're going to do this, but I know it's a tough job. We want folks to go to college, but some are never going to pass the ACT. I deal with kids every day who can't even pass the test to become a private in the Army. So we have to open our minds and our hearts on how to help them also. We have some children, they turn 18 years old, we turn them in the street. Take your best shot, kid. You're 18 now, you're out of foster care. So here again, we have to break these issues down and realize that's a kid that's just bait for the gangs and for all type of illicit enterprises that are there in the community, just that can smell them a mile away because they have no direction. And so one of the policy recommendations is to let them volunteer to stay somewhat in state custody and have someone to oversee them and help them as they make the transition out of foster care, help them get in school, help them go to college, help them to be better people. When we talk about our veterans, it's a shame to have a man or a woman come home who has been shot at and many times maimed and hurt, and then have them have to struggle just to keep a roof over their heads. To me, that's a national shame, and I talk with veterans all the time and counsel them all the time, and I would hope that this would be something that not just the task force, but all of us as responsible legislators and public officials and corporate officials, that we will always keep in mind that there are those who are paying the cost of our freedom every day, and do everything that we can to help them. And the task force talked about this policy recommendation to look at these guys who are highly skilled in the military. If they've gotten a certain amount of training and technical skills, then give them credit. Help them get in college and use those credits so they can move on towards some type of baccalaureate certification, and they don't just lose those skills that they put so much time into. The Subcommittee on Hunger and Nutrition, here again, that's one of Chairman Morris and our current chairman, something that they were very, very interested in, and giving out food and making sure that folks had healthy diets. If a kid who has not eaten, and I've seen some of them, I've had a daycare people mark a diaper on Friday, and the kid comes back Monday in the same diaper. Teachers who know that if they don't put something in that kid's backpack when they leave to go home that weekend, that kid will probably be hungry all weekend long. And basically what I like about the task force and the people that we dealt with as we travel around the country, like Jeff and others, is that they actually put this stuff on the table. We actually talked about it. And we didn't just believe that these questions were going to answer themselves. Policy recommendation was to do everything possible to help some of the schools have their own gardens and let the children eat that food that are in those gardens. The Subcommittee on Criminal Justice Issues. One of the things, Governor Haslam put together a task force on sentencing and recidivism. You know what we found out? That the majority of the guys who are going back into prison, we call it a revolving door, a lot of these issues are parole issues. They can't pay for parole. They can't pay for something. They can't pay some fine. They haven't committed a new crime, but they're still back in jail. It's still called recidivism. So here again, opening our eyes to what the real issues are, because we can't sustain and pay for the current system the way it is. So policy recommendation, create a policy to ensure that employers look at the candidate's qualifications. Don't just see a person who is a former felon, but look at that person holistically. Are they a good family person? Are they taking care of the children? Do they show up? What was the last job? And kind of look at that person as someone that's other than someone that has a black mark on them. I truly enjoyed the task force during the time that we were together and traveling around. I think great work was done. I think the policy recommendations are great. I think the summary and the conclusions that Representative Sly will talk about a little bit later, I think that it shows that good work was done by the task force.
Thank you, Representative. And if you have not taken the time to look through this, you will know it's much more in depth than what we're doing right now. There's over 150 recommendations, and they're broken down by the different subcommittees that we had in the committee. And also there are recommendations in there of actual policy or programs that are throughout our country that you can look at and find out that, okay, I guess I'm really interested in training voucher program, job training program, using SNAP funds for workforce training. We have looking at initiative that focuses on workers with disabilities. If you go through it's a wealth of information and a lot of additional just background information from the committee. And from that, and from those conversations that we had, we explored a lot. It wasn't just legislators that was on the committee. We had a lot of people from industry that were on there, from academia, lots of different areas. And so all of us coming together worked. Not always, it was a hard process to get to consensus on some things because we had a wide variety of opinions and experiences. And you know that as well as anybody else, that sometimes there's not always agreement, but we kept working away at it until we came to the recommendations that are included in here that became recommendations for this framework that we have.